Kuhulafa Silsila Nooria. In 1972, 22 more Khalifas came to the fold of Silsila Nooria, and Noorul Mashaykh then felt the need for an organizational setup to impart discipline and order to the Silsila. So Noorul Mashaykh himself took the initiative for the organization, as he felt that the people of Kerala are by nature attuned to the way of an organization. So in 1972, Majlis-e Silsila Nooria was formed. The organization prepared a bylaw for its activities. Under the supervision of Hazrath Zuhoori Shah Noori, a 28-member committee was formed. Noorul Mashaykh himself selected the office bearers of the committee. N. Abu Bakr Haji, who was the Mudarris at Tirur Korangat Juma Masjid, was the president. Kiliyamanil Moidu Haji was the secretary. And Khatib of Chavakad Manatala Masjid, K.V. Ibrahim Musliar, was the vice president. Shamsul Ulama E.K. Abu Bakr Musliar was nominated as the legal advisor of the movement. Panakkad Pukoya Thangal and Malappuram OPM Cherukoya Thangal were the honorary vice presidents. K.T. Bapu Haji was appointed as the treasurer. Though the Forum of the Khalifas was formed, at the helm of the organization was Zuhoori Shah Noori. He was then honored with the title Musahihut-Talimat. Under the leadership of Zuhoori Shah Noori, the activities of the Silsila became ever stronger. He used to reach the centers of Halqa and conduct Talimat. At that time, Talimat of the Tariqah were used to be conducted at masjids and madrasas. But Zuhoori Shah Noori felt that those places were not fit for spiritual sermons and occultation. So he instructed that separate khangas should be founded for the purpose, and khangas were started all across the state. The first khanga was started in Alavi in 1974. Thereafter, khangas were formed in Perindalmanna and Manur. And some people came out against Silsila Khangah, and more Khangas were formed all across the state. New style of Tabligh. Zuhoori Shah Noori gave a new awakening to the Silsila and introduced a style of propagation. His talim was not restricted to masjids and khangas. He instructed the fraternity to buy a van. He used to travel by that van to every nook and corner to propagate the talim. He chose streets and waysides where people used to assemble to spread the mission. Moreover, during an Ajmer trip, Zuhoori Shah Noori kept with him a mic with amplifier and fitting it onto the train started sermonizing. In that Ajmer trip, he taught people talim, dhikr and awrad. During the Hyderabad trip and the Hajj pilgrimage, there was the very same experience. Zuhoori Shah Noori kept away from everything except dhikr and fikr, and everyone spent time with him in dhikr and fikr. The only capital he had with him was the spiritual knowledge and a lifestyle based on that, which he had learned from Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu. The knowledge led him to the state of elevated feeling. Wherever people heard him, they gave him their eyes, ears and mind. There were situations in which people who were hearing him even forgot to partake food served before them, and those who had food forgot to wash their hands. The talim that was started after the Isha prayer would be extended to the Subah time, and people would pray in the same ritual purity that they had had for the Isha prayer. The talim that would start after Subah would go on till Luhar. They would even forget to relieve themselves being in the trace of listening to him. He did not say tales or entertaining words. He was talking about the tazkiyah, iman, uluhiyat, which people did not have chance to hear from elsewhere. He was not even delivering the talimat. During that process of giving spiritual enlightenment, he would ask them questions and would chide them if they did not give him the satisfactory answer. That was the process of spiritual edification. His intention was to impart to the Khalifas and disciples the spiritual wisdom he had received from Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu. The instruction of Noorul Mashaykh and the Tarbiyat camp. The Tarbiyat camp that was held in Perindalmanna in 1979 under the convenership of Zuhoori Shah Noori was a major step in the history of Silsila. The camp was held at Cashew Nut Company in the region where Maulana Hospital is now situated. At a gathering at Noori Maskan in Hyderabad where Zuhoori Shah Noori was present, Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu said, "I am coming over to Kerala. A 7-day Tarbiyat camp should be organized." The people of Kerala were not aware of the Tarbiyat camps where the days and nights of participants are enriched by dhikr, aurad and talimat. The camp members are given food and place to stay. Their body, mind and spirit are purified. It was risky to organize such camps at a time when people are too strained to find fund. And people who do menial jobs, agriculture and coolie works could not even think of leaving their jobs for a few days. How could such a camp be organized at that time? That was haunting Zuhoori Shah Noori. Sensing his inner tension, Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu said, "Come and visit how the camp would be held. Everyone should pledge that he will conduct the camp himself. Those who have rice contribute to the camp, and those who have vegetables give that to the camp, and so on and so on." The response from the disciples was amazing. They sent to Kangah everything they could give to the camp: vegetables, tubers, fruits, rice and spices. Some of them gave their cattle for meat. Some of them sold out their wealth and contributed it to the camp. Sayyid Noori Shah radiallahu anhu reached Perindalmanna from Hyderabad to lead the camp. The camp was held at a time when some vested interest groups were spreading propaganda against the Silsila under the cover of an organization. But the participation of the disciples, ulamas, umaras and awliyas in the camp really stunned the organizers. Vazhangada Hyder Musliar, the Sheikh of Naqshbandi Silsila, Abdullah Musliar, who was stationed in the seat of Kannur Abdul Qadir Thani from prominent Sufi servant family, and Peringatur Baba Musliar, a prominent Sufi, were some of the leading figures who participated in the camp. The participation of Vazhangada Hyder Musliar in the camp was a hot debating topic at that time. When people asked why he participated in the camp, though he himself was a sheikh in the Naqshbandi Silsila, he answered, "If the sunlight appears, there is no place for the candlelight." Instead of 7 days, the camp went on for 10 days. The spiritual knowledge that the camp imparted to us can be reminisced without elation and pride. After the camp, there was a 40-day chilla at Noori Maskan at Hyderabad. Most of the participants at that chilla were campers of Perindalmanna. At the end of the chilla, Kuttur Abdurrahim Musliar, Moidutti Musliar Baqavi, Maulana Abdul Fattah Baqavi and I were given the Khilafat by Noorul Mashaykh. As many as 14 people were given Khilafat at that day. Tabligh and Tawakkul. Among the disciples of Noorul Mashaykh, there were many orators and scholars. P. Hyder Musliar, Elankulam P. Muhammad Musliar, both were former presidents of Kerala Silsila Nooria, and A.V. Ibrahim Noori, who was the Amir of the southern region, were all renowned and remarkable orators. They used to get a heavy amount of fee for the sermons, but once they accepted the role of Khilafat from Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu, they renounced the practice of accepting money for sermons. Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu instructed them to adopt the method of tawakkul, entrusting everything in Allah. Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu used to say, Tabligh is the mission of prophets. By that, they were bringing the slaves closer to their master. They were seeking the happiness and liking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through that. We have to involve in the activities of religion, keeping that in our aim. The advice of Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu was reflected in the life of Zuhoori Shah Noori. He got involved in the Tabligh activities seeking nothing but Allah's favor. Neither ill health, nor financial constraints, nor the barricades of the language and region did not become a hindrance for him. He entrusted everything in Allah and devoted himself to the Tabligh activities. He strove to hand over this style of missionary activities he had learned from Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu to his Khalifas. An experience told by P. Hyder Musliar is remarkable in this context. Hyder Musliar. Chisti-Qadiri Hyder Musliar, also known as Kamalullah Shah Zuhoori, grew up under Tabligh and Tarbiyat of Hazrath Zuhoori Shah Noori. Born in Pandikadu, Malappuram district, Kerala in 1941, to Paikadan Ahmad Sahib, he completed his studies at Jamia Nooria Arabic College at Pattikadu. He was a disciple of E.K. Abubakar Musliar. Once he was conducting those at Kunnapalli in 1970 to 1974, when there was the Zikr Halka and Talim of Zuhoori Shah Noori was also happening. Initially, he did not receive bayat. It is only after observation and study that he received bayat at a later stage. When he realized the truth about Silsila Nooria, he received bayat from Zuhoori Shah Noori at Cherugara Juma Masjid. In 1972, at the command of Zuhoori Shah Noori, he participated in a chilla at Noori Maskan in Hyderabad. Around 22 persons were given Khilafat at that chilla. The first one to receive Khilafat was Hyder Musliar. Before the bayat, Hyder Musliar conducted dars and sermon, which was his means of life. But after he joined the suluk, he kept off dars and public sermons, and thus he had no way to find money for house expenses. Whatever amount he got, he spent it on travel fare to halqas. At that time, his father was alive. He was very good man. He often buy things for family, realizing the difficulty of Hyder Musliar, and gave the credit to Hyder Musliar in front of his other children. Hyder Musliar did not have bus fares for his intermittent halka trip. At the same time, he did not miss any halka due to financial problem. He reached every halka by walk or other means. He could not disclose his poverty to others, and he could not ask anyone for money. Thus the Shaykhuna commanded him. Often he went by foot, covering a distance around 10 kilometers from Kattupara to Perindalmanna after participating in the halka. He was fully active in Silsila activities. Many days he substituted merely on black tea, as he did not have money for meals. Many mornings he had mere tea for breakfast. Despite these strained conditions, he did not depend on anyone for his needs. As taught by Zuhoori Shah Noori, he was steadfast in tawakkul, trust in Allah. Zuhoori Shah Noori says, none should take part in halqa expecting financial benefit. See how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfilled things for us by going to places where we are sure we don't get things. But this advice for Khalifas to adopt tawakkul was very easy to hear. But difficult to put it in practice. But those who mainly benefited from the advice are Hyder Musliar and Elumkulam P. Muhammad Musliar, also known as Jamalullah Shah Zuhoori. Here follows a testing experience on the way of Tawakkul. Talim at Kondotty and the taste of Tawakkul. This incident happened at a time when a faction turned against the Suluk. There was such a propaganda that many parted ways from Suluk under its influence. However, those who knew the greatness of Noorul Mashaykh anhu and of the tariqah remained intact. However, most of them were poor. The Khalifas were all instructed to give talim in their localities, but the disciples did not have money to give them even for bus fare. That was also the time when those who had money were reluctant to spend it. One day there was a halqa at a house at Kondotty. One Kondotty Muqaddam Parambad and Moidinkutti Haji came to Berindalmanna Kanka to invite Hyder Musliar to take the talim there. Hyder Musliar knew that if he go to Kondotty, he will not get even bus fare from there. He did not have money for the bus fare between his house at Chisti-Qadiri and Perindalmanna, so he was reluctant to take the request. Zuhoori Shah Noori knew what ailed him and he said, "Are you working for someone and receive wage from someone else? Take the wage from the same person to whom you are working for." Hearing this command, Hyder Musliar could not say, "Yea, no." Thus, Hyder Musliar and Amminikad Abdurrahman Musliar left for Kondotty to take the talim. After talim, both of them arrived at Kondotty bus stop to catch a bus bound for Perindalmanna. What Hyder Musliar feared happened. Neither had money to go back to Perindalmanna. Worse, since Zuhoori Shah Noori told them not to say anything about poverty and not to ask for money and adopt tawakkul, he could not ask anyone for money. The bus stop at Kondotty was nearby the police station. There was the shop of a soda merchant named Kuttiali whom they knew. They went there and sat on a bench in the shop. Then they started conversation. There was one OK Muhammad Haji by their side. He was a native of Kondotty. When the buses bound for Perindalmanna arrived there, OK Haji would go to the bus and reserve a seat for them. But they did not go but continued their conversation. Many buses went past them like this. OK Muhammad Haji did not know the real reason why they did not stop talking and not standing up for the bus. If they asked any disciples for the travel fare, they would get it with some extra allowances, but never ask any else. That was Sheikh's command. So they continued sitting there for Allah's help. They were motivated in that act by Zuhoori Shah Noori's words. Take the wage from the same person whom you are working for. After some time, a taxi car reached there and one Shamsuddin, son of Omanur Kuli Muhammad Haji, who worked as a coolie at a Bombay Hajj committee, got off the car. He had of late come on leave from Gulf. He told them, "I have come here for an urgent need. So glad to meet you here. Please come with me to my house." They made several excuses that they were not coming, but he insisted that, and so they went to his house. There he treated them with ghee, rice and chicken. After rest, he gifted them with a turly cloth for making shirt and 100 rupees each. Ghee rice and chicken was the best food back then. None had even seen the currency of 100 rupees often. And back then, turly shirts were rare. This was the sweetness of tawakkul they tested. That incident was a great lesson when we were struggling without money at Kondotty, without even for the bus fare. A gentleman came, gave us food, gift and money. This is the sweetness of tawakkul. If you leave the creations and rely on the Creator, He will conduct your affairs for you. That is what this incident proves. But that incident had another interesting twist. One of them changed the 100 rupees into denominations and used for fare. The other knot was kept with them. After shirt was made with the turly cloth, they kept the knot in their pocket in turn. The knot could be clearly seen in the pocket by others, and that was the style of the sheikhs. They do not show privations and poverty out. If they have unconditional and complete satisfaction in Allah, they can hide their sorrows and show a pleasant face. Trade in the path of Allah. Hyder Musliar was someone who purified himself by the teaching and influence of Zuhoori Shah Noori. He was a great orator and respected scholar. After he became active in the suluk, he lost his job of mudarris and had to forsake sermons. Difficulties in his life increased. He thought that if he started a side business, it would help him. A textile owner at Perindalmanna who knew his difficulties came out to help him. They made a tentative decision to start a textile shop at Hyder Musliar's native place. The merchandise for the shop could be arranged at a cheaper rate. If Hyder Musliar employs someone to run the shop, he could engage in Tabligh activities and his life would smoothly go on. Hyder Musliar liked the plan, but he needed Zuhoori Shah Noori's permission. Zuhoori Shah Noori was taking Taaleem at Karuvarikundu, Kerala for a week. He went there. On the way he met Khalifa Kunji Muhammad Musliar. He ran a perfume business as a side business. Besides that, he made herbal tablets and sold them. Both of them reached the presence of Zuhoori Shah Noori at Karuvarikundu, Kerala. At first, Kunji Muhammad Musliar met the Sheikh and Sheikh asked him, "Are you fine?" "Alhamdulillah, I conduct Taaleem at Halkas and for life to go on, I run a herbal medicine trade." This is the opportunity to ask his permission, Hyder Musliar thought. And he said, "I intend to start a side business." Zuhoori Shah Noori, the great one, however, did not let him complete. An unexpected answer came from him. "I am going to give you a full business, not merely a side business." He was meaning the trade in the way of Allah, as Allah has detailed in the Quran. "O you believers, shall I lead you to a trade that will save you from grievous penalty, that you believe in Allah and His Messenger, and that you strive your utmost in the cause of Allah with your property and your persons, that will be best for you, if you but knew." Then he said, "I teach you the method of living by entrusting everything in Allah. Others invite you to dunya and asbab. You don't need the side. Set out completely to the way of suluk." Hyder Musliar thereafter dropped the plan of starting the business. He engaged himself in full time in the activities of Silsila. When Zuhoori Shah Noori moved from Manur Kuttipuram to Perindalmanna, Hyder Musliar also moved along with him. Even after death, this intimacy continued. Hyder Musliar is having his final sleep at Karuvarikundu Dargah Sharif by the side of his Sheikh. Hyder Musliar's sermonizing skills. Though he was a skinny small man, Hyder Musliar was gifted with many skills. Zuhoori Shah Noori, the prescient one, saw in him his multifaceted skills. That was why in 1975, Hyder Musliar was selected as the president of Silsila Nooria, Kerala, though he was a young man, bypassing several experienced ones. The selection was done after the demise of the then president Abu Bakr Haji, who was the mudarris at Tirur Korangath Juma Masjid. Hyder Musliar was a great scholar and orator, and he was never proud or boasting. His lifestyle was humble and simple, and his oratory skills attracted everyone. His innate humor and usages helped many big trees fall. The examples he used to bring the ideas home were all humorous and deeply reflective. I remember one such speech Hyder Musliar delivered at Noori Maskan in the presence of Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu. The Khalifas and scholars from various states were present in Noori Maskan, Hyderabad at that time. He was speaking about Tawhid in Athar, the ownership of Almighty and the oneness. To say it is one thing, to practice it was difficult. He cited an example. By that example, the audience was moved and a peal of laughter passed through them. There were people who knew only Urdu and Tamil in the audience. Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu then asked someone to translate the incident quoted by Hyder Musliar into Urdu. The incident goes like this. Kethod Hydrosutti was a landlord, Zamindar, but later he lost his wealth and property. Once he was invited to go to a guest house. As he was a landowner, he wanted to go there with aplomb and grace. But his upper garment, the dupatta, had been torn. He had no money to buy a new one. Then he suddenly remembered that he had once given such a dupatta to his servant. He called the servant and asked him for the dupatta. He said he had kept it in his box. Hydrosutti asked him to bring that dupatta. He duly brought that, and wearing it, he asked the servant to accompany him. They went together. Hydrosutti walked in front. He was sturdily built, good looking and gracious. On the move, one man asked the servant who he was. That was Hydrosutti master, but his dupatta is mine. Hearing this, the landlord became angry. He had given that dupatta to him in his golden days. Hydrosutti asked the servant why he said those words of ingratitude. The servant said he would not say it again. Then they walked ahead. Another man met them and asked the servant who is he. He is Hydrosutti master. His dupatta is his. That again irritated him. He got angry and said, why did you say that the dupatta is mine? I won't say that again. They walked ahead and yet another man met them and asked who is he. That is Hydrosutti master. His dupatta is neither his nor mine. The landlord became angry and he told the servant, don't say anything. He agreed. They walked. Another man met them. They asked the servant who that man was. That is Hydrosutti master. I won't say anything about him and his dupatta. Everyone laughed hearing the story. The servant was showing the nafsani and ingratitude in him. The landlord gave him the dupatta in his best time. Now, as he is financially strained, he has borrowed it from him. But the servant forgot that his master had given that to him. But now he thought that he gave it to him. He overstepped the censures and repeats the dupatta was his in many ways. Like that, we all spend from Allah's wealth, but we say we gave. The story brings to us an example of the futility of saying, I gave. The servant shows us the crudeness of showing oneself and having nafsaniyat, which will erode the glitter of our generous offerings. A hadith reported by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu brings this point home to us. A shaheed, a scholar, and a generous are being cross-examined on the day of judgment. Their hypocrisy and self-aggrandizement made the shaheed and scholar fall in the hell. The generous man was brought in. Allah informed him of all the blessings He has showered on him. He agrees. Allah asked him, what did you do with your wealth? I spent the wealth in your path I contributed it to religious institutions and the poor. He cites the cases one by one. Allah says, "You said a lie. You spend only to be known as generous. You got it in the dunya and you have nothing here." He eventually nose-dived into hell. One's pomp and self-aggrandizement would be the undoing of one's self-worth. The fact that commoners and scholars build their image and aggrandize themselves in their very act is shown in the servant's mentality in the story. Self-aggrandizement and nafsaniya are like leech. They drain blood from our body. Only when the leech leaves us, we feel the pain. This desire for to be known is shirk khafiy, hidden shirk. After death, we will know its pain. It is not easy to escape from situation. Only a sheikh murabbi can cure it. Not having tutelage, one will stumble in the path of progress. Mashaykhs hide themselves and shows Malikul Mulk in their actions. If they are not refined with Tarbiyat, people show off, become pompous and aggrandize themselves. Hearing this, Noorul Mashaykh gave Hyder Musliar a hadiyah. Everyone came forward to give hadiyah. Meaning of Hijra. People of Kondotty are fortunate to always listen to Hyder Musliar. When the Hijra year 1400 fell in, there was a mega celebration in the region. In the celebration organized jointly by all Muslim organizations, people in and around Kondotty participated, and the participation and the conduct of the program was grandiose, and the shops and streets in Kondotty were regally ornated. Hijra year begins when the Prophet ﷺ and his followers emigrated from Mecca to Medina. When the enmity of the polytheists became strong, Prophet ﷺ and his followers Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu went on the Hijra first. In order to escape from the enemies, they took shelter in the cave of Saur. When the enemies reached the face of the cave, they were disordered by the spider's web and the bird's nest full of eggs, signifying absence of humans inside. The organizers, in order to revive this memory, decided to ornate some spots in the model of the spider's web. At the heart of Kondotty city, a public meeting was organized. Religious and political leaders were all invited to the function. Representing the Silsila Nooria, Hyder Musliar was to speak on the function. That was the time when a matador van was plying in between halkas for Tabligh activities. Hazrath Zuhoori Shah Noori had reached Payanangadi near Thirur for the Silsila Nooria activities in the van. They were heading to Kondotty from there. When someone brought the news about the program to Zuhoori Shah Noori, he asked, "What is Hijra?" He asked the unexpected question. He was not satisfied with our answer that it was emigration of the Prophet ﷺ and his followers from Mecca to Medina. What is the meaning of the word? What is the origin of the word? It is the verbal noun of hajara. And what does that mean? To renounce. And what is renounced and what is attained? And none could clearly answer that question. Zuhoori Shah Noori said, "It is to renounce Massive Allah, everything except Allah, to attain the Haqq." The Tawhidic implication of the word made ripples in Hyder Musliar's mind. It was for the first time that he heard that Hijra was such a deeply meaningful act. As he understood the message and meaning of Hijra from his Sheikh, he made the audience realize that implication through his word. When they reached Kondotty from Payanangadi, the conference had started. Former Kerala Chief Minister C.H. Muhammad Koya was to inaugurate the function. The function was presided over by Qali Shihabuddin Imbichi Koya Tangal, Kozhikode. Representatives of Samasta Kerala Jamiatul Ulama, Jamaat Islami Kerala, Nadwatul Mujahideen were there in the stage. There were only limited seats in the stage, one seat each for an organization. But Hyder Musliar was not ready to be seated on the stage without his sheikh. They walked to the stage, Zuhoori Shah Noori in front and Hyder Musliar following him. Pious and different in style and aspect, Zuhoori Shah Noori was invited by the organizers to be seated in the stage, and Hyder Musliar got the seat in the back line. Hyder Musliar was invited to deliver the speech. All prominent persons, including C.H. Muhammad Koya, were on the stage. He was apparently unimpressive, but as he started speaking, the whole audience became silent. He argued in his speech about the origin and distinction of the migration, that Hijra is still relevant. All religious communities are free to observe their religion in a democracy like India. So we are not supposed to immigrate for the sake of our faith, but we are today subservient to dunya, of this physical world. We have to liberate ourselves from this subservience to the Almighty of Allah. We have to renounce evil to attain goodness, means to attain musabbibul asbab, one who makes the means. Servility to dunya to attain Allah's vassalage, and subservience to creations to be obedient to the Creator. That is the message of Hijra. In a few words, he imparted to them the true significance of Hijra. Whereas other detailed the history of Hijra, he was narrating the relevance of Hijra in our own time. Hyder Musliar was capable of delivering that message with the insight he had been given by his Sheikh, Zuhoori Shah Noori. Deviant fatwas and fitnas. The respect that Muslims in Kerala had for Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu and the growth of the Silsila had irritated some scholars. The adhkar and talim of the Silsila were held in certain masjids and madrasas in Malabar. It was even reported that after Jummah prayer, an announcement was made asking if anyone else remained to receive the bayat. It is time for them to do bayat. As the masjids and madrasas became the halkas of the Silsila, as people were increasingly attracted to it, and the khalifas of the Silsila were accorded more respect than other scholars, the evil intention of stemming the movement appeared in some people's mind, and they started to hatch plots. Knowing that some vested interest groups were trying to misguide the scholars and to have issue a fatwa against Silsila, Zuhoori Shah Noori asked Hyder Musliar to send a registered letter to Samasta Kerala Jamiatul Ulama, an organization of Sunni ulamas. The content of the letter was that before takes an action against the Silsila, it should give Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu or the Khalifas in Kerala a chance to state their position. Before Samasta Mushawara, the question posed were such that Samasta could be manipulated to issue the fatwa against the Silsila. The names of the places such as Karuvarakundu, Pottiyara, Mambura, Iringatiri reveals the depth of the conspiracy. The places mentioned above are near to the native place of a Mushawara member. There were debates, arguments and counter-arguments based on the fatwa. Followers of the suluk were ousted from masjids and madrasas. Misguided by the propaganda of some scholars, the bigwigs, politicians and people with influence turned against the suluk. Convinced that the tariqah is completely true, Hyder Musliar decided to go on a pilgrimage to Ajmer and stay there by escaping in the critical condition. For permission, he approached Sheikh Zuhoori Shah Noori. I am going on a pilgrimage to Ajmer. I came here to seek your permission. Zuhoori Shah Noori realized his true intention. He asked, are we not on the side of the truth? Yes. Why then should we fear? The truth will triumph. Thereafter, heeding the advice of Zuhoori Shah Noori, he changed his decision and made the mind to fight for truth. With Hyder Musliar, Aminikad Abdurrahman Musliar and Elam Kulampi Muhammad Musliar also became part of this earnest attempt. Their struggle for truth in fact stunned the opponents. Hyder Musliar's fight back. The examples that Hyder Musliar gave in his counterattack are still relevant. The deviant fatwa caused problems in the land. Some scholars spread the rumors against Silsila Nooria, saying that if Samasta takes a decision, it will not change the decision and that decision is final. Their intention was to misguide the public with that argument. Hyder Musliar strongly opposed this system of closing one's eyes and saying it is dark around. Disclosing their award, he said an anecdote as an example. It was a wedding ceremony of a Brahmin youth. The bridegroom arrives to the function on the back of an elephant. The mahout has set the elephant ready for him. The groom climbed the elephant and sat with his face backward. The mahout, seeing this, told the groom, "Master, you are sitting backward. Turn your front towards the head of the elephant." The groom became enraged by a lower caste man's advice to him. "I have decided and I sat. If you want, turn the elephant back." All these examples reached the exact destination. Though bigwigs and big trees remained in staunch position, the seekers of truth who were lucky enough to taste the sweetness of Tawhid remained firmly behind the tariqah and set the stage for answering the propaganda of the opponents. Hyder Musliar, Aminikad Abdurrahman Musliar, and Elam Kulampi Muhammad Musliar were conspicuously present in all these stages. They established that the tariqah and the sheikh were in fact true on the basis of Quran and Hadith, but convinced as they are of the truth, some said that the scholars who issued the fatwa would not say in vain. Hyder Musliar responded to the argument citing a joke in Germany during the World War II. Everyone was busy with the cremation of the bodies of the soldiers who were killed in the war. Each cadaver had a sealed tag which showed the confirmation of the death. When all these bodies were packed inside a truck to be carted away, one or two soldiers who were alive but were unconscious in the truck. When they regained consciousness, they hardly knew that they were being carted away with the dead bodies in the beginning. When they came to realize that, they bit down the pain and said, "We are alive and we should not be cremated." Hearing this, those who were in charge of cremation said, "You have been certified as dead by doctors who are MBBS graduates, so remain there silent." Hyder Musliar's arguments with examples caused headaches for the opponents. When the opponents came out against the suluk, it was Hyder Musliar who was at the forefront to counter them by quoting Quran and authoritative texts such as Hadith and other Tasawwuf texts. The listeners could easily understand him. In the debate at Kaladi, Kuttipuram, and the symposium at Malappuram under Sadaqatullah Musliar, which were organized after the Deviant fatwa, the speech and tit for tat given by Hyder Musliar are all etched in my memory. After these incidents, a few impartial observers said, "This is not what we thought it would be." Prominent scholars who know the Quran and Hadith and the exoteric meanings are with this group. Many tariqah groups are in Kerala who could not defend themselves against the attack of Samasta. Some vested interest groups thought that they could easily make this tariqah disappear. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the lovers of His very being who know how to deal with Zahir and Batin, outward and inward meanings of Quran. Hyder Musliar played the remarkable role in introducing the tariqah to the Muslims of Kerala. The tariqah was not strange to the people of Kerala, but by the middle of the 20th century they had fallen backward from the path. The path that deals with ilm and irfan became strange to them. The idea of physically, mentally and spiritually purifying humans became unknown idea. Even scholars sought the help of sheikhs of tabarruk and consigned themselves to the rituals of dhikr and awrad. For those who firmly believe in Ahlus Sunnah, tariqah is essential. but the commoners were not aware of tariqah and its proper directions, and it was not even a topic of discussion. There remains the relevance of Hyder Musliar's service. In the meetings of tariqah and counterattack against opponents, Hyder Musliar tried to prove the necessity of the true tariqah. Hence, Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu once declared, the people of Kerala don't need explanation about the necessity of tariqah. Hyder Musliar has fulfilled that mission. That the words of Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu was true is borne out by the contemporary Kerala, which is rich with many and varied forms of tariqah. Hyder Musliar was a far-sighted and prescient scholar. His initiative of bringing Sayyid Arifuddin Jilani radiallahu anhu in the time of Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu to Kerala is an example of his far-sightedness. After an Ajmer pilgrimage in 1989, everyone came back to Hyderabad. The disciples and Khalifas under the lead of Hyder Musliar participated in the pilgrimage, and everyone was seated in the old Kangah. Then Hyder Musliar said to us, the wealth of Silsila is possessed by Shaykhuna's eldest son and Janashin, Sayyid Muhammad Harifuddin Jilani. He was to brought to Kerala. His talim has to be organized at Kondotty and Malappuram for 10 days. Hyder Musliar brought this idea before Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu. Then he said, my children and I consecrated for religion as waqf property. You two are my children and he my eldest. Take him there. Hyder Musliar's invitation, following incidents, the situation today will all reveal the importance of the mission. After that conversation, Hyder Musliar came back to Kerala and on the following day departed this life. 1 year later, Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu too demised. However, Sayyid Arifuddin Jilani radiallahu anhu, who is at the helm of the Silsila, now is familiar in Kerala. Once in every month he comes to Kerala, remembering the loving invitation of the prescient Hyder Musliar. He said, when he had reached the street after the demise of Hyder Musliar, Arifuddin Jilani radiallahu anhu said, when I landed in the war front, my captain was lost. It was in February 1989 that we set out for Ajmer with Noorul Mashaykh radiallahu anhu. When we were on the way back from that travel, Hyder Musliar told his close followers, Shaykh has given me the permission to take rest. But none thought he was meaning the final eternal rest. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decision is final. On March 7th, 1989, 20th Rajab 1410, he attained wasila in Allah. He had the fortune of taking final rest beside the tomb of Zuhoori Shah Noori. Ammanikad Abdurrahman Musliar, Rahmatullahi alayhi. Ammanikad Abdurrahman Musliar is another great man who grew up under the tutelage and Tarbiyat of Zuhoori Shah Noori. He was born at Perindalmanna and later became a native of Ammanikad. Since he was a mudaris of Cherakkaparambu, he was called Cherakkaparambu Mudaris. A great orator and scholar, he came to the fold of tariqah somewhere between 1973 and 74. He had a strong dislike for tariqah and sheikh. When his friend Cherukulam EP Muhammad Musliar invited him to the suluk, he said, when we say about sheikh and murid now, we know they are counting head of their murids as hairdressers count the head which need dressing. They focus on the number and the wealth of their disciples. I don't need that bayat. Though he evaded with those words, he was forced to think about the change that accepting bayat had effected in countryman Ammanikad Moinkutti Haji. A wealthy farmer, Moinkutti Haji would go out every day to his farm and struggle hard in the field from morning to night. Meanwhile, he did not have time enough to regulate his life in accordance with Sharia. But the entry to the tariqah made a sea change in Moinkutti Haji's life. He started praying in time and regulating his life as per the Sharia. He had been once reluctant to spend time for religious activities and money for charity, but he came forward for the works and with money to spend. This change made Abdurrahman Musliar wonder. Also, Moin Kutti Haji, who was not a learned man, started quoting Quran and Hadith. Finally, he agreed to come for the Talim. Zuhoori Shah Noori's Talim was going on in Chemmala Jumaat Masjid. I had reached there from Karivarakundu, Kerala. 1 or 2 days later, Abdurrahman Musliar reached there with Moin Kutti Haji. At the masjid, there was the bayat after the Maghrib prayer. Then his friend E.P. Muhammad Musliar invited Abdurrahman Musliar to receive bayat. Suddenly came his reply, I have come to hear him, not for bayat. Abdurrahman Musliar was closely watching scene of giving bayat and the contract thereafter. The contract was that a person would submit his life as a complete mutasharri. The bayat, the prophetic way, and the contract on the basis of Sharia started to sway his mind. When he became aware of the greatness of the tariqah he once made fun of, tears started to flow over his cheeks. When he cited the scene of teaching dhikr of Anfas, he became fully anxious and deeply moved. He approached Zuhoori Shah Noori and requested, I need bayat as well. Respecting that request, Zuhoori Shah Noori recited the bayat for him. After the bayat, he always found time to be in the presence of Zuhoori Shah Noori. The opposition against the tariqah broke out immediately after Abdurrahman Musliar's bayat. Though he was stunned initially, he came forward to defend the tariqah. To the point that arguments that he raised, his opponents did not have any answer. He would speak for several hours at a time. There was once a tariqah explanation conference at Kondotty in Malappuram. Abdurrahman Musliar's speech went on and on even after the midnight. But people did not disperse. It was early morning, 3 o'clock. He sought permission of the peoples to stop, but the people did not let him stop. He again started the speech and stopped it only after the Subh Adhan was called out. The scene of Abdurrahman Musliar's departing this life could not be remembered without emotions. He demised on 12th of December 1979. He was conducting a talim at a mosque nearby his house. The talim was about death. He said, Allah has many sifats, that is attributes, Salam, Rahman, Rahim, Fattah, Razzaq, etc. If we were asked as to whom the benefits of this sifat should be revealed in, each of us would say, in me. However, there is another sifat of Allah, that is Mumit, the one who makes others die. If it is asked whom the result of this sifat is to be revealed in, none would accept that. But the disciple of Sayyid Noori Shah anhu would accept it with their both hands. After the talim, he went home. His mother was bedridden. He went to his mother's side and said, Mother, you have not yet had the time to leave. I am leaving. Saying this, he asked his wife to bring some gruel. She brought that in, and after drinking it, he was lying in the bed. After some time, the inmates of the house heard him reciting the Tawhid. When everyone reached his chamber, he had attained Visal with Allah. That great one's janazah with a beaming smile still lingers in our mind.